Women were allowed to vote in Germany, and even though the country has a female chancellor, there is still a lot of work to be done. That's a familiar situation here in Ghana, where women make up more than half the population, but very few of them can be found even in Parliament. Looks like there is still a long way to go indeed. So how is Germany dealing with this situation, and how is this even a problem in the first place? Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners DW, and he joins me in our usual crossover all the way from Berlin. Thomas, good to see you once again. Now, low representation of women in politics is not necessarily unique to Germany, but run us through why it is a problem in the world of politics in the first place.
Nice to talk to you again, Gifty, and good afternoon from Berlin. It is indeed, as you say, a problem that is not unique to Germany, and there are various factors that have been mentioned as possible causes why women tend to play a minor role compared to men when it comes to political representation. It is said, for example, that more men tend to want to be in politics, that it is in a way a male-dominated profession, and that makes it more difficult for women to enter politics in the first place. That there are also problems when it comes to balancing work and family life, for instance. Those are elements that in many countries have been a particular issue of concern. So those are some of the elements that are described as to why, in general terms, women do not have such a big political representation as men, although there are a couple of exceptions around the world where in fact women do play a particularly important role. For example, in parliaments, when you look at Rwanda, when you look at Bolivia in South America, those are concrete examples where women play very important roles in parliaments in those countries. But again, if you look at the causes, those are some of the causes that are mentioned, as well as, for example, the fact that in many professions women do not earn as much as men do in similar positions. Those are all elements that have been discussed around the world, and where politicians are trying to act accordingly to try and improve the situation. As Angela Merkel clearly said this week when Germany commemorated that 100th anniversary, although, for example, quotas are good, she said the absolute goal has to be parity. Parity in all works, in all areas of life, not only in politics, but in many different areas as well, between female politicians or female businesswomen, or, well, you name it, and men in similar positions.
So you just mentioned that Angela Merkel has been speaking about this, but beyond what she said, it's been 100 years. What exactly has been done in Germany, for example, to commemorate this, and to what extent would you say it has been a problem specifically in Germany and other parts of Europe?
Obviously, Gifty, it was an important event this week, commemorating those 100 years. It was an event, as I said, attended by Angela Merkel herself. Other politicians also attended that event, and it was obviously not only to mark those 100 years of women's suffrage, of women being allowed to vote, but also to mention that there are still challenges ahead. Again, Angela Merkel stressed that the goal has to be parity in all areas, not only in politics but in other areas as well, and stressing that Germany still has a long way to go. When you look at, for example, female representation in Germany, if you look at the proportion since 2017, in other words, since the elections last year, only 30.9% of parliamentarians are women, and that is comparatively low. For example, 2013 to 2017, in other words, before the elections last year, that was 36.8, in other words, nearly 37%. So that's why some politicians have said that that is becoming a problem in Germany. On the other hand, obviously, you can say that Germany has made a lot of very big and important steps. The fact that it's a German female chancellor here for the last 13 years, the fact that Angela Merkel is one of the leading politicians around the world, the fact that some of the political parties here in Germany are either led or co-led by women. Those are also very important statistics, very important things to consider, but it is not the whole story. The other part of the story is that Germany still has a lot to do when it comes to that goal stated by Angela Merkel herself, namely parity.
How easy would you say it is for women to get in and survive politics in Germany and other parts of Europe, and what are some of the interventions being explored as we speak to make it easier for women?
It depends, obviously, what you compare it with. If you compare entering politics now with entering politics 100 years ago or 50 years ago, it is obviously much easier now than it was back then. That again doesn't mean that there are challenges. I quickly looked at an international comparison of parliaments around the world and female representation there, and Germany, for example, is in position 46. I already mentioned the two countries that lead that list, Rwanda and Bolivia. Germany being in position 46 is not something that many here feel proud about. The fact that only 30.9% of parliamentarians are women. I also looked at, for example, other European countries. Germany is behind 11 other European Union member states. Again, something that doesn't make Germans feel very proud. And I also looked just to compare what other African countries look like, where African countries are. And Rwanda in the first place, South Africa in the 10th, Senegal in the 12th, Tanzania 25th, and I'm afraid, Gifty, that I looked as well at Ghana, and Ghana is in position 143rd. So not only here in Germany, a lot has to be done to ensure that women can enter politics and remain in politics and become an active part of politics, but also in Africa and in other parts of the world as well.
And here in Ghana, it's been a fierce debate, and it just keeps going on and on. But finally, Thomas, going forward, what are the foreseeable challenges ahead as far as women representation in politics is concerned, in your opinion?
If you look, for example, at the parties here in Parliament that have the best female representation, those are the Left and the Greens, they have had quotas, in other words, to ensure that female representation is according to what they believe. That word quota is very important. This has been discussed a lot here in Germany. It is a very controversial term, but it is something that is being discussed as well as other mechanisms to ensure that women can have an appropriate representation according to their proportion in society. That's something that has been discussed here widely. So one area is obviously that, but again ensuring that not only in politics but also in other areas of society, more and more women are able to enter, more and more women have tools and resources available, for example, to combine their profession with family life, with raising children. So all those are things that are being discussed not only at the highest levels of politics here, but also in other areas of life. And that's, by the way, something that is not only discussed here in Germany, but also in other European countries as well.
But it's obviously, it is obvious that women do a whole lot, much more than men, I must say. And so when they have to add the extra duties like politics, it gets a little bit tricky. But certainly, it's a possibility. Thomas, thank you so much for those analysis, informed analysis, I must say. Thomas Barrow is political correspondent with our partners, DW. He joined me all over from Berlin in our usual Wednesday crossover.